Happy holidays, everybody, and welcome to Xbox A. I am one of your hosts, Matt, and joining me is the Canuck with the puck. So Santa's coming to town. It's Halo guy. It's Court.
You put like the Halo theme when I did that, so like when I pull my shirt up.
Sure.
That'd be awesome.
That's in post. So there's my reminder. Thank you so much. And joining us once again for this very special episode, the man, the myth, the legend, the tech with the specs himself, Steve Vegvari. What's up, Steve?
Honestly, he's got to put that in his Twitter handle now. That was good.
Thank you. I got water and I thought of that one for you.
That's awesome. No, thank you for having me. I mean, talking to Halo, I had to come on and join you guys for this.
Thank you very much for being here. So everybody, we are talking about the Halo Infinite campaign.
Spoiler alert, we all played it.
Spoiler alert, we have all played the campaign and we have all beaten the campaign. And we were all provided codes by Xbox and Xbox Canada. And thank you very, very much for Court and myself here, Steve. It would be our first time getting something from Xbox directly for this size and scope to be able to review. So we are very, very thankful for Xbox giving us the opportunity to play Halo Infinite in the campaign and be able to provide our thoughts and insights. So thank you, Xbox, and everybody over there at the team of Xbox. Now, let's talk Halo Infinite campaign. Steve, let's start with you. Give us your overall thoughts, impressions. Everybody, this is spoiler-free review. We will have more in-depth coverage coming at you like every day as this is coming out. But Steve, give us your overall Cole's notes on it. What did you think of Halo Infinite?
So as someone who has gone through the hills and valleys of Halo over 20 years at this point, and someone who's kind of been lukewarm on Halo 4 and 5, I really enjoyed Halo Infinite. This felt like I was being pulled back to my, formative teenage years of playing Halo 2 and Halo 3 and feeling like there were stakes. There were, great story beats, and just the gameplay in general is spot on. This is Halo to the extent that we all want and I think craved for so long. And I think overall, what they've done to modernize and bring contemporary gameplay elements into Halo Infinite paid off really well. And I do feel like there's some improvements. Like you can definitely tell that there were things taken away from the game, maybe towards like the latter part of it that may play out in the future and can kind of just add on to this base foundation that they have, that 343 has had. But overall, I think this is a really solid entry and something that I've been craving since Halo Reach, for instance. Yeah.
Court, what about you? Your thoughts on Halo Infinite?
I had a ton of fun with the game. I then realized how close we were to having to talk about said game. So then I had to mainline the story. So for me, one of the things I am excited about is to go back and play it on launch day, because our copy didn't have achievements and we had to do certain things to play the game. So I want to go back and play it my way, because when we first get into the map and everything is just populous and you literally, it's like almost like a John Woo, the birds fly by and you're just like, wow, or whatever they are, the flying animal that flies by. It's very cinematic. It's very beautiful. I was very impressed with how the game looked in the open world aspect. And I did like the fact that there was pinpoints on the map where you could go and do this and do that and then unlock to find out more. And then you could, if you want, you could just mainline the story like I did eventually. I just mainline. You could do that. But there is a way to explore and have an adventure, a la like a Ubisoft game, but it's not a Ubisoft game. I want to preface that it's I say a la because finding pinpoints on a map to me is like a Ubisoft trope that they put in all their games, which is fine. They do this, but they don't overload the map. 343 does a great job of giving you this vast, beautiful looking map, but they put little pinpoints to give you a reason to go over that side of the map. But you can come back over. So I found the story to be very well written. The story was very compelling. The ending, everything about it was very good. I had my problems with the game, but that is also the way I played the game, I think, brought into that. But I would say this is the most fun I've had playing a Halo game since Halo 3.
Cool. Yeah, for me, it was, I think, right in line with both of you. Uh,
Mhm.
Getting into the beginning of the campaign, it felt right. It felt great. It did, Steve, like throw me back to, yeah, Halo Reach and just older Halo games of playing years and years ago, and feeling very like this epic, big blockbuster story and story that I was going to be a part of. I really, really like the open world aspect that they have built, because it is a hybrid, I feel, of other developers and things like Ubisoft titles, Far Cry titles specifically. It reminds me of that. There are elements there, but and I've seen that conversation pop up online, a week, 2 weeks prior, and I don't agree that it is like, oh, is it like Far Cry? And this, no, it's its own thing. But that's like Court, you're saying there are elements there that you can relate to. But 343 is doing their own thing in its own way, and I applaud them for that. I thought the story, as I've taken more and more time to step back with it, I have my issues with I guess the level design, and the way that we have to navigate through certain areas. I
Mhm.
thought that was challenging, that I wasn't a big fan of, because it became a little bit too redundant and repetitive. And I thought certain elements in there could have been tightened up and streamlined a little bit. But the story, the narrative, that aspect of it, the story they were telling with Chief, thought it was great. Thought it was really, really great. What did you guys think about actual gameplay? The gameplay mechanics that we've all known from the Halos of yesteryears and all of that. But Steve, what did you think about overall moment to moment gameplay within the campaign?
It's exactly what I want to do. Is at its core, it's Halo. I mean, you got all the same weapons, the same basic abilities. I mean, you do have the included sprint mechanic, which you know kind of quickens up the pace of the game. But that grapple shot, like the
My
that thing
fave.
just changes the game for me. I was using that constantly. I know that they give you the other power ups and like the thrusters. I'll be honest, aside from using them, like in multiplayer proper, but during the campaign, I didn't really touch them only because the grapple shot was so good. Like even the fact that you can hit the jackal shield to stun him, and
Yeah.
then he
Yeah.
like powers off, and then you're like, okay, now I have an open shot. Like it just changes the game so much, and traversal is awesome because of that. Because you're in an open world, you might as well just use that to scale a mountainside or something like that, or just to get across a piece of land. It's a game changer, and I love that they included that into the campaign.
Yeah, I'm with Steve with the grapple hook. I used it a ton. I almost to the point where, because it is a Halo game, you still have very rationed ammo throughout the game. But
Hmm.
there are ways to find. There is almost like a sonar. You can press the button and it will show you on the map in your area where things are. So use that. But the grappling hook, you can upgrade it. So this is the first Halo game where you can actually upgrade things, and that excited me right away.
Mhm.
And you can use that grapple hook to not just stun people, you can use it to shock people. So when
Hmm.
you upgrade the grapple hook enough, you can use it, and it hits the guy with the shield, knocks it off, hit him again, and it electrifies him, and then you zoom right into him, and then you just melee him. So I was able to, like, the little small grunts, just melee them. Like, there's just no
Mhm.
point in shooting them. Just go around melee. I found the vast open world to not be too big. Like at first, I thought it was daunting. I looked at it, and I'm like, wait a second, it doesn't take that long to get across the map, so don't worry about that kind of things. And as you unlock certain areas of the map, you're also going to be unlocking vehicles that you can summon when you fast travel to certain areas. There's also fast travel. So they add a lot of quality of life features to
Yeah.
this game in an open world that you need, and they did a good job with it. If I had to give it some gripes, I guess it would be, it's definitely obviously was made to be on Xbox One X and the Series X and the S, because there still is loading screens, and they still have that, go on this elevator, go on this light bridge thing that
Yeah.
they do in all their games. And
Hmm.
I get it, but it's
That's
there
slowed it down
still.
too. I agree with you guys with the grapple shot. I think too, Steve, like back to your point about it, used it the most. I think because also it's default as
Yeah.
one, and that's why like I just use it. Like it was much later in the game that I started to toggle between what my options were to use a shield or do anything else. And Yeah, maybe just being able to do my sprint here and there for different enemies. That's the only time I really switched it up. It was
Sure.
being very creative with that grapple shot. And man, the more and more I expanded on what I could do with it, just like they've shown in trailers and the releases too, of like grapple the warthog or grapple the, like being able to go and grapple onto an enemy, hijack the vehicle, turn around, start blasting, jump out of that. I would grapple up to another part. I would snipe down, being able to enter different areas and take down enemies. But the way okay, how do I want to attempt this? Do I want to be a little bit more sneaky, and what guns are available, and then be able to take it from there? So I really like the grapple shot. It made things quicker. Even when you're taking down enemies that are coming at you and you want to be able to get away, I'm like, I would just shoot it and bail out of there and turn around.
I don't think there's a better feeling to make you like step into the shoes of Master Chief than, you know, you have your battle rifle, you're down to your last few bullets, and there's like 3 or 4 banished around you. You run out, you grapple shot another weapon into your hands and just start popping heads. I was like, this is like next level Halo gameplay that I wish I had as a kid. Like, I wish this has been in the games throughout 20 years, because I had so much fun with that.
It also makes you better in the multiplayer, if that makes any sense, because I played so much of the campaign and I'm doing all these things, and I'm getting so used to using grapple hook. I'm getting so used to using all these abilities that when I get those set abilities in the multiplayer, I'm like, oh, I know why I have this. Like it gives it more of a, not a beta and not being like trying to figure it out. We now know, because as you go through the story, you're meeting up with these. And there's this little thing where you pick up and you upgrade the I'm trying not to give away everything. And then there's these little things that you pick up and you can upgrade your suit. Yep. And that suit will give you certain abilities and powers. And then they kind of give you like hey, go use it without saying it's a tutorial. The next time you get into an enemy where there's enemies, you're going to go use it. And so it's awesome. And when I went to go play the multiplayer last night after I finished, I felt like I was better at the game. Because I knew more. I had more knowledge.
Yeah, I did the same thing where I'm like, okay, power cells too. Like I would ignore them in the beginning of the campaign because I'm like, I'm just using my rifle. I'm just doing traditional gameplay of what I know. But then I started getting deeper and deeper into it. It was those scenarios, guys, of like, okay, I'm down to my pistol and I have 2 shots, and I would just go, I'd grapple one and I'd chuck it and I'd be able to kill a guy, and then I'd grapple him and then I melee attack him. Yep. And you can get really creative with it, or even stuff like I would forget constantly of like, why don't I just grapple those weapons? So what I did later in the game, I was like on a more of a peak, and there's enemies all around me at the bottom, and I had limited weapons and limited supplies. And then it dawned on me that I was like, all those rifles are like down below. So I would go and I'd grapple one up, fire one off, power cell, and chuck it. It was so much fun.
It also helped in boss battles to run away. Like,
yeah,
and I say this because we all, when you get into these boss battles, you're going to understand you got to run away.
Yep.
There's a lot of running, like just run away. And you can use the grapple shot to like zoom you across these little areas that you're in having these boss battles. So it was actually like, thank God I had my grapple shot. And the feel of it is very good.
And they give you a ton of weapons too, right? Like there's so many different options, different weapons you will come to use, I think, throughout the game. And letting you have your kind of pick of the litter, right? In any given moment, you're not just stuck with the battle rifle if you don't want to be. So it forces you to I think to really have to change up the way you're going to approach different enemies in different parts of the map. When you're like, well, I can't just use my pistol or my battle rifle here. I've got to use this. It's going to make things a little bit easier on these enemies.
Well, it's like my respect for the skewer has become if it's in the multiplayer, I'm going to be using that gun like nobody's 100%. Business. I know how to use that thing now, and that thing is vicious. That can take down anybody. That is the best weapon in the game if you know how to use it. Like a spaceship comes in, a dropship comes in, skewer, it's done. Like Hunters? There's a part where 2 dropships are coming after you in this game. I skewered both of them down. No big deal.
Yeah, same with the hunters. They're so OP against those.
Yeah.
Every time I encountered one, I was like, please just let me find a skewer somewhere here.
I found that too. I wanted to ask you guys about enemies and the AI. I really appreciate, so it can be really challenging at some points, which is good. You don't feel like you're just mowing down enemies from one area of the map to the next. I know Court and I, we've talked about it. We got killed a lot. Steve, what did you think about the enemy
And we
design.
all played it on normal, right?
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah,
I played on normal.
I
Yeah.
usually play on baby mode when it comes out on Wednesday. I'm 100% playing it on baby mode.
Steve,
when it comes out on
easy.
Wednesday. Yeah.
What did you
baby
Steve,
mode?
Steve, what did you think about the enemy AI playing against them? Did you find it overly challenging, decent, balanced? Like, was there any areas where you're like, this is not working?
I thought it was very balanced. I do think that there are difficulty spikes, especially with certain of the bosses or certain just of the monster closets that you find yourself into. If you're not prepared enough, you're going to end up dying and everything. But no, I can definitely see myself going through this game, playing on hard and still having a very good time with it. It's legendary that I'm like, ooh, man, this is going to be rough, especially if I'm doing it solo without like co-op at launch and everything. Like that's going to be
that's
a very difficult thing to achieve.
You just brought up the biggest thing that I can't believe it, because we were told it wasn't going to be in there. And every time I play it, the first thing Matt texts me, he's like, "Oh, I can't wait. We can play this to co-op." And I'm like, "We can't."
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh my God, I forgot," because it feels like it's set up to be a co-op game. To me,
100%.
Halo is a co-op game. It's always been that way. So to me, I'm always like, I play with buddies. You you split screen. You're playing with friends. This game is set up to be played with a friend, especially like the amount of warthogs that are stranded around the map. That I have no one to shoot the gun while I'm driving. I don't know. I feel like, and a lot of the ways they set up these monster closets, that it would be more beneficial if someone was on either side coming at them instead of someone just coming and getting surrounded.
I totally agree. And I think that you even see this in some of the progression areas where you're forced to grab these like almost power cells to unlock these doors. There's two of them opposite sides of these rooms. That's co-op in the making right there, where one person goes and grabs one, the other grabs the other one. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, this area is meant to be played with other people.
And the power cell meme that will come out from this game is going to be hilarious. Like, people are going to try and open a door in their house, and then they're like, hold on 1 second. I got to go back 2 feet behind me there.
Get that
cell. There's a power cell that I got to
right there.
take out of somewhere, unplug that light, and we'll plug in this one, and my door now will open.
Makes sense too with the multiplayer map for the power cells, when people are like, what is this?
100%.
And they're like, oh, I don't really like this. And I'm like, well, if you don't like that. But I think that I think with the maps and like the AI and the co-op aspect of what you guys are talking about too, 100% feels that way. Of these areas, there's so many areas that are so big and allow you to approach it from different angles, any which way. There are so many times where I was playing and I was like, man, Court, I could just see dropping in or trying to get achievements. And presumably, because I have no idea what they're going to be, but presumably when the achievement list comes out, there will be co-op ones that will be enabled in there. And I could totally see that even if you're playing Steve on like a harder difficulty, if you're on Legendary and you're trying to get through, that's when you're going co-op. And I would love to see how they're going to integrate it, where I could just ask Court and then he just literally drops into the middle of my game.
If you think about it,
I want to know what they're going to
start
do.
Up the game, they kind of make it seem like they're like, oh, no one else is online with you. And I'm like, am I allowed co-op? Like the very first time you load up the game, if you look up in the top right-hand corner, it actually, when we first loaded it up, it said that no one else was online with me. And I'm like, well, what? And then it showed like my battle pass and all that. So like the game is very already integrated with the systems and the multiplayer. Yeah. And we can get into that too, to discuss whether we think the multiplayer and the game itself are the same thing. But it is what it is. Like they've come out ahead of it, so I can't knock them for not having it in. When I was thinking about how I would review this game, if they said it was going to be there and it wasn't, but they did tell us it isn't, so I can't hit them for it. I just wish it was there. Just like I wish I could upgrade. Like I could upgrade my armor. Just let me have a larger clip in my gun. Like give me my Valor points that you get throughout this game. Just let me use them towards upgrading the clip in my gun that doesn't run out of bullets so soon. That's all. That is one of my gripes. If you're giving me an upgrade system, let me upgrade my gun. But you never know. This is called Halo Infinite. And one thing I will tell everybody from playing this game, it is set up to add content. Big time.
Steve?
Yeah, and this is kind of one of my, I don't want to say gripes, because I really don't know, and that's the thing. We're recording this like days before launch and everything, and I wish I knew what this infinite concept even meant right now,
Yeah.
because the game does have like a beginning, middle, end. It does conclude in some way, but there are ways that are just like, oh, okay, no, this story is going to continue. It's going to continue within this game. What does that mean though? Are we getting sizable expansions? Are we getting just new open world areas where you're going to unlock like little tidbits of story? I don't really understand.
Other planet, maybe?
Well, it kind of seemed
Another ring? I don't know.
yeah, I don't really know, but I wish that 343 would just kind of come out and say this, maybe within like launch week or something, and be like, listen, this is our roadmap. This is when we're gonna get story DLC #1 or something like that. Because I am genuinely curious about how they're gonna continue this, is especially in campaign. I can already see what multiplayer is going to look like down the line. I'm not really concerned about that. They've already been pretty transparent and vocal about it. But campaign, I have a lot of questions, and it's not that I'm necessarily knocking them for how it's structured right now. I'm just very curious about how this game's going to look like in a year from now.
Well, we've been saying that on the show for the last couple of weeks about the multiplayer. Like, where's my roadmap? Like everything gets leaked like every 2 seconds. So I said to Matt, well, maybe they're waiting for launch day of the game, of these two separate things. That my opinion is that the same thing. I'm sorry, is the multiplayer is just the multiplayer for this campaign.
Yep.
When we talked about it before the show, we're like, should we be including? Maybe we should, because they are one thing, and the multiplayer would actually make the game better. So they'll bring out a roadmap and say, here's what's going to be like for the multiplayer. And they couldn't give us a roadmap because that roadmap, the multiplayer and the campaign, are going to coincide. And I truly believe they're going to do that not to make you want to play both.
And I think that Steve, like same as you're saying, Steve, I can see easily the infinite amount of content they can do from a story perspective for DLC, like other worlds, court, other, like, just so much they could go back to. They could reference stuff. They can give you 2-hour, 5-hour DLC pieces. I'm excited for that. It has me curious, Steve, like you're saying. It has me very excited though too, because I really love what they have built on the campaign / multiplayer side, but the online piece, like what they have built here at its core, I really, really love. And I feel that it is different. It is something that is going to be unique, where people are saying like, is it like a Far Cry and a Ubisoft game? Maybe a little bit, but I think what's going to really make it different is how they integrate, like, here's how this story is going to come in and expand the map and add more and more for you to do. So I think there's so much in there. The next thing I wanted to ask both of you is going to be sound design. And asking about, what did you think overall? Because the score within Halo games in the past has always been tremendous. It's always been awesome. How did it work for you, Steve? How did you feel about when going through the campaign and the sound design specifically for all of it?
Again, like, I just want to like nail this point home. Like, it sounds like Halo. You get the awesome score that accompanies a lot of the Halo games. Like when moments pop off and you hear the Halo theme, like, chills, man. And adding to that, Steve Downes as Master Chief, I think this is probably one of his best renditions of Master Chief. There are some monologues and some lines that he has that just hit different, honestly. That I know a lot of people look at Master Chief and they're like, oh, he's just a brooding soldier in a green suit. There's no emotion to him and everything. I'll argue that till the cows come home, that Steve Downes just brings such a magnetism to that character, especially because you can't see his face. It's all from audio cues and just the way he expresses it, like, in his voice. And I think that comes through the audio incredibly during Halo Infinite, that we see a vulnerable Master Chief in this game, and that's all because of his voice acting. And it accompanies that with a score as well. The music is just fantastic in this game.
I can't recommend more to wear a headset to have experienced the Dolby Atmos. I did find we were playing, I would call it a pre-build, what we were playing, because I was having some audio issues where I was hearing footsteps keep happening. And I looked down at my Master Chief and he was continuing to move as my controller wasn't. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I thought it was maybe the Elite Series 2. So then I turned on the other controller and it was continuing to do it. I also was getting these weird weird noises. And this is not gloating or I have a pretty decent sound system in my basement. So when it sounds amazing, but then I could find these little audio issues of like crackles and stuff. And I'm guessing it's just the build. But yeah, I found the sound to be another character for this game, that it was making me want to play it more. Like when you're going down into the depths of certain areas and the sound was changing. It was great. It was well done.
That's a really good way to put it too, Cord, is that it's an additional like character to the game. Because I found that too, where additional things that you pick up along the way, the audio logs, I guess we can just speak to, just not giving anything away to them, but there are collectibles in the game, and the audio in the storytelling within the audio logs and different things that you are collecting, they enhance the story, the specific campaign story that it's telling, and just the greater part of the universe too. I said this to Gore in the previous show we just did too, talking about this at high level. I have never enjoyed collecting audio logs in games, because I always just find that they just don't do anything for me. I know they do for some, and they're like, this really helped a lot. It's just never been a trope that I've enjoyed, and I would only do it for the achievements or the trophies. This is the first time that I've gone through that, and I started collecting a few of them, and I was engaged. I was fully immersed and engaged, and the way they time them out, the way they are placed and how they will go and lead sometimes from one moment to the next, they allow enough time to space them out and to breathe for you to go and travel from one area to the next, and it times out beautifully. And then you get into that moment-to-moment gameplay, and there is that rise in the score, and it's getting harder and harder, and the music is actually building up, and then you get those big crescendo moments when you finally take off one more sniper rifle shot, and then it just comes down. And that's why like it just adds so much in Court. You're right. It's like another character in here. Boys, final thoughts overall though. Halo Infinite campaign. Is there anything that stands out that you were not happy with? Because we're giving this game, there's a lot of praise in there. I know that we have some issues with it. Some of it's from a build perspective. I know for me, on the technical side, there was texture pop-ins, artifacting. I had slow frame rates for a number of scenes where it did drop.
It on the TV.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, so I could see that the frames were really going down, taking a dive in some areas. I'm chalking that up to being a pre-release build, and they'll patch and update that. But what say you? Was there anything that didn't work for you? And final thoughts.
Yeah, just right off the bat, I think you can tell a lot of care and attention went into creating this open world, a lot of attention to detail and everything. The interior, more linear aspect, when you go into like a building, for instance, for the core mission, does get very samey. There are one instance that, is just burned into my brain. You go into a building and you go through the better part of a mission and everything, and then towards the end you're in like a carbon copy of that same place. I was like, I know this isn't the same building I was in previously, but this is the exact same layout, and I just wish it was different. I mean, I feel like this is a level design thing that you can go all the way back to the original Halo, and it does that. It's one-to-one. Like, you do go through the same areas multiple times, and I don't know if this was like a nod to that, but I just didn't like it all that much. I thought it was kind of just safe, kind of boring. You're changing up the combat while you're going through it, but otherwise it was like I'd rather be outside at this point, just exploring Zeta Halo and just going through all that, because I'm having so much fun. But then you get into these interiors that look gorgeous and everything, and look sprawling and big and everything in scale, but at the same time you're literally just going through the same layout. I'm like,
Yeah, I'm the same, and I call it a 343 trope because I just finished playing the Master Chief Collection again. So if I got to ride one more elevator or walk one more light bridge, I think I'm going to lose my mind. It's just, they do that a lot in games, and I understand it's for loading screens, but this is supposedly next gen. So at this point, I'm like, I don't know. I'm excited to see what they do in the future, because that won't be there anymore. So maybe they have to do a different level design. And I found that some, not all, but some of the boss battles, they put you in such a close quarters during the boss battle that I don't understand. It like ramped up the difficulty so much that you're like, really? Like, what? Why? Because to me, what was so good about this game was the story. So when I have these frustration moments, And I know it's because I'm not that good at games, so everybody's going to have a different experience. But when I'm crescendoing in a part of a story and then I'm just getting murdered by this boss over and over and over again because of the way the level is designed, I'm like, oh, come on. Like you're stopping me because I'm a huge story-driven player.
Mm-hmm.
So it can push me away from the game at times. That's all. It felt frustrating. There was two ones in particular where I felt that the area where they decided to put this boss battle in and the power of said boss didn't match. Like they had it, like I could barely run away at one point. And like even with a grapple hook, I'm like, come on. Like this is just I'm one touch and I'm dead, and he's I've got to knock down his shields. There's a whole bunch of things I needed to do to get to get rid of the boss, and I felt that it also could be, as I said to you guys before, it could have been my expectations. I was expecting a story-driven cutscene boss battles. And I know some people don't like those. I do like those. I prefer them. Where you do
more
this,
of a quick
this, and
time
this.
event.
Yeah, more of a quick time event where because it's a story. Let me go out and shoot everybody, but more of a quick time event, story-driven boss battle.
And that's
because
where
these bosses should be a crescendo of this part of the story, right? And instead, it turns into this grind that I don't want to do.
That's where games like God of War do an impeccable job when you're going through boss battles. That you're like, these feel different. These are
it's a perfect game.
Incredible moments. Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the end of Halo 2, the Tartarus battle, but with a health bar.
There you go. Fair enough.
That's essentially what you're doing. Instead of like Halo 2, when that came out, it was like, this is clearly a boss battle. You're just not treating it as one. Now they're treating it as one.
Yeah, which I get. And it's fair. Like, and also this is just my personal preference.
Yeah.
I was really hoping Microsoft and 343 were like, hey, we're not giving you God of War. That's not what we're here for, but we're going to give you the best Halo story ever. It came pretty close, but it didn't hit the mark with me.
So let's end on a high note, though, everybody. Let's talk about, because we're Canadian fellas here, so it's everything's. We should say sorry. It's good. Sorry. It's a good game, But let's end on a positive note. Steve, what excites you with everybody being able to get their hands on Halo Infinite, the campaign, and kind of like where you see this thing going? But what's one big positive takeaway from the game?
I just, for a Halo fan, someone who's stuck around with the franchise for as long as I have, since essentially day one, this is a proper return to form for me, where I think, a lot of people have had their trepidations with how 343 has been handling the core Halo franchise. I mean, they've done wonders for Master Chief Collection, but Halo 4 has been kind of rocky. Halo 5 was very middling for a lot of people, including myself, but this gives me a lot of hope. I do have criticisms about the game. Obviously, we talked about them, but at the end of the day, this is something that I've been craving for years. And even from a story perspective, if we just boil down the story, I'm in love with what they've done with Master Chief. You got the pilot and weapon, like this ragtag group of characters interacting with each other is something we've never really seen before. I mean, it's always just a boiled down story of Master Chief and Cortana. This is something very new and human to it. I feel like the story beats they go through is awesome. And then you bring in the Banished, which is something that very focal to Halo Wars, bringing that into the fold. Like I feel like this is a culmination to a certain extent of 20 years of storytelling within a cherished franchise of mine. And it's all just paying off in one big scape. And I am really hopeful to see that, this high that Halo Infinite has right now continues into the next year or two, or however long they want to continue this with story DLC or whatever. But that's a huge question of mine. What does the next year of Halo Infinite look like? But beyond that, I had a great time.
Awesome. Court from the courthouse. Get it, Steve?
Yep. It felt like the first time, as someone who just literally went through the Master Chief Collection again, I felt like 4 and 5 were hard for me to play again. As someone having to play them again, I'm like, oh, do I really want to do this? But I wanted to do it so that I could continue into the story. And I said it before on the show. It is the best Halo game since Halo 3. It feels like a Halo game, and that's why I was so disappointed with the no co-op. I'm like, I just feel like I want Combat Evolved. Like, I want to go back and play with buddies. But it was fun. It was fun again to play a Halo game, just like I'm having fun with the multiplayer. And that's my biggest takeaway from this game. It's fun. And that's what, to me, video games should be about. I can have my personal choices and my personal reasons why I like or dislike something, but I can't recommend this game enough because it's fun. There's nothing about it where I'm like, oh God, I got to do this again. Even when I had to do a light bridge, I knew at the other end it would be something fun to do.
That's perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our spoiler-free review of Halo Infinite, the campaign over here at Xbox A. I'm Matt. That's Court. That's Steve as our special guest to do this review. Thank you so much for watching and tuning into this. This was a lot of fun. Again, thank you very much to Xbox for sending this, providing the codes to all three of us, for allowing us the opportunity to review the game. Let us know in the comments below, what did you all think regarding Halo Infinite? Give us your thoughts and opinions, your critiques of it all. But I think for all three of us, we could pretty much say that we're excited to see what the future of Halo Infinite is going to be. And, well, it was fun. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode.